what does authenticity mean to you?
I think it's just living your life unfiltered and not watered down and just truly being yourself, embracing all parts of you, even the parts that may be a little difficult to face.
Hi, and good afternoon to you, Erica Rankin.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. You're in Toronto, right? At this
I
moment?
am a little outside of Toronto. Yeah, I'm near
Okay.
Niagara Falls. Yeah,
It's beautiful there.
it
It's
is.
beautiful
It's
there.
quiet.
I want to thank you for your time because I've been watching you on particularly LinkedIn and your posts rivet me. And so I reached out to you about talking about mental health in social media. And we're going to get into that, but I actually want to let's talk about you first. I want to know your story.
My story. That's a loaded question. Do we
I
want the
can
the spark notes?
Let me tell you my notes because I've spent a while ready preparing for this. You were in a is that you 2018 bodybuilding competition?
That
That
was,
was you?
yeah.
Okay.
That was
And then you're
me.
an entrepreneur, cookie dough bites. You went to bro dough
Hmm.
and then bankruptcy and you shared everything on social media. And
Hmm.
then now magnitude method, right? Personal branding cohort. And you have a podcast. You're not a bad person.
Yeah, that's me
So
in a nutshell.
pick whatever you want to talk about that.
I guess what led me to entrepreneurship. So in 2017, I graduated with a degree in psychology and was kind of following the path that my parents wanted me to walk down with everyone else and
Mm,
get the degree, get the job. I got the job. I worked in my field for about a year and a bit. And then I kind of hit, I don't know, like a crisis, I guess, because I looked around me and I didn't like where I was and I felt stuck. And I thought, is this it? Like, did I go to school for 4 years and get on honors roll and work so hard just to get minimum wage and work a job that I'm not enjoying and I don't see any opportunity to grow in. So I quit my job and then I booked a one-way trip to Southeast Asia, as
did
every
you?
20 something year old
That's
does.
awesome.
Yeah.
So great.
Was supposed to go for 1 month, ended up staying for 3.5, basically until I ran out of money. And on that trip, I met entrepreneurs, and that was where I realized, oh, okay, like you don't need to have a business degree. You don't need to have doors open for you. You don't need to have parents that, can teach you the ropes of entrepreneurship. And
Right.
I met a former lawyer who was building these giant homes in Thailand and like flipping them and selling them. I met a high school dropout that had a moving company and would travel 6 months out of the year. And it kind of gave me a window into what that world could look like for me
Mm-hmm.
and the freedom and flexibility. And the one thing everyone had in common when I talked to them is their faces would light up when they spoke about what they did. And I saw that and felt that and thought, I want that, whatever that is. I want that. I don't know what it is and what I'm going to do, but I want that. And I got home and then I landed on the cookie dough idea and branded it as Brodo. It was a protein cookie dough that I actually used to make for myself when I did bodybuilding. And
Really?
then, yeah, and then I grew that over 4.5 years until everything kind of came crashing down in April of 2023,
Yeah, it was recent.
2024.
So I follow because
Yeah,
I and the interesting thing is you posted on social media about your journey,
I
which is a
did.
huge was it really a huge success. You had a huge following on TikTok
Yeah,
and
that was
interesting.
Yeah, that was like I guess a big piece of it is I felt very alone in like the journey of entrepreneurship, especially during COVID. I had all these events planned and then the world shut down and I was in my
Right.
apartment picking and packing boxes and writing notes to customers and I thought, why don't I just document all of it, like the good and the bad on LinkedIn, on TikTok, and see if it resonates and it did and that's kind of how I grew the business and had success with it.
Why do you think people gravitated to that so much? Because it really was like this huge gravitation to what you were sharing.
I think especially so TikTok was interesting because it has a different audience than LinkedIn. With LinkedIn, I never ever went on it or spent time on it. And I just started posting stuff and I didn't really know what the rules were. And I didn't really know
Mm-hmm.
that it was a professional platform. And I was posting stuff that was maybe more appropriate for Facebook or Instagram or these other social platforms. And I guess I just wanted to spark a movement where people could post more vulnerable content that's like humanized rather than, the shiny stuff. I raised money, I got a new job, I got promoted, all the stuff you see that's just so fake and makes you feel so alone in your journey. I'm like, how about I just like lay it all out there and see if it resonates with anyone? And then tying in the mental health aspect of it, of going through the pandemic alone, building a business struggles, personal struggles, all the stuff that people don't really like to talk about and makes people uncomfortable. So yeah, I did it for myself in a way, but then I also did it for others. And there's a quote that I really love, and it's something along the lines of like we're most equipped to help the person we used to be. And that's like
Uh,
kind of like the compass with all of the content that I put out is like, is this going to help someone who needs it? Because I've walked that path and I know what it's like. And if I can be a
mhm.
light in that dark time in that person's life, then that's all I need, right?
My opinion, just being a newcomer to social media, is that people are craving authenticity in a
Hmm.
very inauthentic world. And your post, honestly, and I'm not just saying this because you've agreed to talk to me, because it's so candid and honest and hits the heart of what every human wants, I think, and the struggles we're having with the authenticity. That's been my opinion of your very rapid, relatively rapid growth
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
It's, what do I know?
Thank
But
you.
I've
Yeah.
noticed the, well, that's so before we shift, I want to talk about like mental health and authenticity, and I'm weaving a story with the questions. I actually first want to hear about, last question before we move on, is your family. Like, I'm curious to know, and I know you've spoken about your family, but what can you tell me in like a minute or less about your upbringing and what you were raised in?
It's very interesting because I'm like back home at in the house that I grew up in, and I'm like kind of going through it right now. My parents are divorced. They got divorced when I was in university, and my parents, like they were very loving, regular 9 to 5, workers. Yeah, my upbringing. It's interesting because I have these conversations with my friends, and I grew up in a house where we didn't really communicate, and we still don't.
Mm.
So it's a very cold kind of home. I'm very grateful. I have everything I need. My parents always gave me everything that I needed. I was taught lessons growing up that I'm very grateful for. I was never handed things. I grew up working on horse farms, and my parents are very supportive with all the endeavors that I had, like showing such a random hobby, but I showed miniature horses, like Shetland ponies,
Did
for like
you?
10 years. Yeah. So
Okay.
I think I had four miniature horses for, most of my teens. That was like my passion, and got into that, and they were super supportive with that. And then I got into the competition with like bodybuilding and exercise, and they
Mm-hmm.
were supportive with that. And so they always have been supportive. They just have a hard time of like communicating that support, and especially with
Mm-hmm.
like the whole Brodo and the business growth and then the bankruptcy, like that was kind of things that just happened that weren't really talked about. So
Right.
yeah, it's
Did that
interesting.
did that affect your mental health growing up and as an adult? Or how did it affect it?
Absolutely.
How?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is like a whole can of worms we can open, but I
I
am
told you,
so
you're
I know.
calling the length of this interview.
Yeah, I started therapy because I struggle to express. I'm very vulnerable on the internet, but when it comes to communicating one-on-one with people and
Mm,
expressing my feelings and being vulnerable, like it's very hard for me with people that I know and love in my life and even friends and stuff. So relationships too, like I have walls up, and I think it's because of the
mm,
way that I was raised. My parents don't communicate like if you did something wrong, like you don't express your feelings, like you go to your room, we don't talk about things. We have big blowouts, we have big arguments, and then the next day we pretend that it never happened. That's kind of the environment that I was raised in. We didn't really talk about stuff. So
mm.
I kind of do the same thing, and I've noticed it
Right.
now. Like I've recognized like my patterns and how I behave and interact in different relationships. I'm like, okay, how can I fix this and not be like my parents? Because I love them, but I want to break this pattern. Like, I don't want to continue this cycle on generation after generation because I feel like it has. It's just the way it's
Mm,
been. And so, yeah, I mean, it affects how I communicate and stick up for myself and express emotions. And I was taught emotions were bad, and they're not. They're good. It's good to be
mm,
emotional, and it's good to have emotions and not have a wall up because the wall is a mechanism that keeps the bad out, but it also keeps the good out, right?
mm.
Yeah.
While you're talking, I'm thinking about, I had this aha moment a few weeks ago. I've interviewed this wonderful woman, Judy Delmont, and she's written a book about cognitive behavior therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like working through your thinking patterns to make your life abundant. And it struck me as she was talking is that you must be kind to yourself to be able to do that. You can't like work through how you're thinking to change your responses and behavior if you're not allowing grace in that journey. So I'm curious to know for you, then it almost feels like I would think it would be harder to be kind to yourself and have grace with yourself if you were raised in a closed up communicative environment. Am I wrong on that? What do you think?
No, you're right. And yeah, I had my closest friend today. We send voice notes back and forth, and she's like, you just need to like have grace and be kind to yourself. And because that's one thing that I'm very hard on myself, and I know it's because, my dad's very hard on himself, and that was passed down to me. And I've always lived my life having really high standards, being like a very like overachieving student, like I would stay in
Hmm.
the library till they turned the lights off. Like that's who I was for so
Right.
long. And even in business, like being surrounded by high achievers and you just are constantly like racing and trying to get the next thing and cross that
Yeah.
finish line, and it just becomes exhausting and unsustainable, and you do beat yourself up in the process, so you do need to be kind to yourself. And even with therapy too, like it's interesting because I'm on this healing journey, and then all of the things that have triggered me and been problematic in my life, I'm like sitting right in the middle of it, moving back home
Right.
temporarily, which is a good test for me. And I realized,
Yeah.
wow, I'm really not working through these things the way that I thought I was,
Right.
or like I need to get better at, recognizing and using the tools and resources that I've learned, over the past year or so.
The most powerful word you just said in that answer is journey.
Hmm.
I think that's the most powerful word because I wonder if that allows more grace and kindness because this is a journey. There's no end point, there's no set point of where you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
And I
it's
wonder if
true.
that helps with kindness and grace to yourself that this is a journey and we're allowed to make mistakes and fall down and have setbacks. I was just talking to a wonderful young woman, and she's 22. And she was raised in a very affluent home, and her father is a very powerful man around here. And she just kind of reiterated, Erica, the same thing, that to grow up with that, the pressure on you, right, is something that it's hard to get over. And you're supposed to be doing this, then there's more pressure. You're supposed to be doing this, the expectations higher. And there's so much toxicity in that we're not taught, I think, recognizing or talking about. Because even if it's not spoken by mom and dad, and in her case it's not, her mom and dad don't say at all, like it's your journey and you're learning and growth mindset, but she has still put so much pressure on herself because of the area she's in, the friends she has, they're all going to do X, Y, and Z, big
Hmm.
education things, and she has hated school. So I think that there is, right, like so much more pressure when you are raised with what you've just described.
Yeah, that is so true. And what else I found to be true is I am now not in my 20s. So I turned 30 last
Yeah,
week.
I know you
And
did.
that's like, so and I love my mom, God bless her. And my parents, like, nothing, like they did their best. That's all I'll say. But they don't understand entrepreneurship at all. And they don't understand
Mm,
what I'm doing. And my mom wishes nothing more than for me to get a regular job, get married, have kids, and
mm,
get a house. And it's
yeah.
always been, and that's something that I have like internalized as well, like subconsciously. It's like, oh, you're 30 and you failed, you had a failed business, you filed bankruptcy, you moved back home temporarily, you had a second business that failed essentially and lost a business partner. So there's like all these things that kind of manifest and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're not good enough and you're not where you're supposed to be and you're 30. And then last night, actually, I was with my mom and she's like, you're nowhere near stable. You should be stable by now. You're 30. Like, you have to get it together. Have you applied to jobs? Have you done this? I'm like, Mom, I'm just on my own journey. I'm figuring stuff out. Like, just, understand that I'm not following a traditional path and that's okay. So it's hard
Yeah.
to communicate that and get them to understand.
So how can you, I just, this question just is not prepared. How can you then, in your own mind, body, spirit, decrease that expectation on you and the expectation that you're 30, you should be doing this and this and this?
I mean, I guess I reframe it in a way. Like, I look at all of the things that I've done in my 20s that most people haven't done. And I'm
Hmm.
like very proud of that. I took big swings. I bet on myself. I learned more in the past, like, 4 years of business than I have my entire life and my whole undergrad and my whole education. And I also look at the map in front of me. And I have friends that had all the things that, my mom wants me to have, and they're not happy. And they're getting divorced or they can't afford the mortgage and I don't think that that's the secret recipe to happiness. I think happiness is subjective. And also joy is more internal, happiness is external, and it's related to all
Totally.
these external things and it's not sustainable. So it's like, okay, I could get the house and that could make me happy for a few years and then what? I could meet someone and get married and settle down and lower my standards just for the sake of like having those things, but I
Hmm.
won't do those things because I don't know. I think even marriage is such a big deal, and you want to be so careful with who
Hmm.
you partner up with for the rest
Hmm.
of your life. And that's a big decision. And I look at that and I'm like, okay, if it's, I don't want it to happen by 30 with the wrong person for the sake of it happening?
Yeah. Okay, so I am old enough to be your mother. And I just want to tell you, like reading what you've written, my response has been, you go, girl. Like just your own strength and recognizing that. Because on our deathbeds, I've said this several times,
Mm,
nobody goes, man, I wish that I'd stayed in that career and made more money and got cancer at 50 with stress. Like nobody says those things, and everything you've just articulated are things that when you are on your deathbed at the end of your life, you will stick to that. Like those will be what are of value in life. Just
mm.
finding that journey.
Yeah, and most people regret the things they didn't do, not the
Yep.
things they did. So it's like I
Yep.
don't want to, be on my deathbed and think, "Oh gosh, like what if I bet on myself or what if I, you know,
Hmm.
traveled in my 30s or my 20s or and yeah, it's one of those things that's so everyone has their own unique timeline and path, and I think we just have to remember that and not put pressure on ourselves. Even
Totally.
though it's
Yep.
coming in from every direction and
Yep.
every angle, you just have to like put the blinders on and focus on your own path, right?
And I think calling it, like just you're recognizing this and you're talking
Hmm.
about it. I think calling it and naming it is so powerful because now we can start to, how do we decrease that expectation that is so incredibly toxic?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I've said about expectation, I taught at a psychiatric unit students that were inpatient. And
Mm,
one day, like working with expectations in our culture of so many expectations, really from all demographics, it hit me like a ton of bricks. As soon as our expectations are higher, our disappointment is greater.
hmm.
So it's not, it doesn't mean you don't hope for things, but that expectation. And when we've got expectations on our kids, if you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, then the disappointment's greater. Versus just allowing the journey and allowing that in everybody's own time.
Yeah, it makes sense. And then also too, there's a sense of like lost control when you don't have those expectations met, whether it be in like business or whatever, or have like a certain
Mm,
outcome that you have envisioned. And I think that's one thing that I really struggled with is like I
yeah.
expected things to look a certain way and be a certain way in every aspect of my life. And then when they weren't like that, it's like, oh my gosh, everything's out of my control. I feel, like I can't control anything, right? Which is not a good feeling. So you just have to like let go and let God, or let go and let things just
Yeah.
fall where they're meant to, which is
Well, and
hard.
there's no freedom. There's no
Yeah,
freedom in life if you don't have that. So I think you're doing great. I think you're doing great.
thanks.
And you tell your mother, my best advice as a mom when my daughter was in grade 2 is it is her journey. It is not my journey as her mother. It is my daughter's journey, and I must allow that.
Hmm.
So, okay, let's shift. I want to shift now into just mental health on social media, which is why initially I reached out to you. You did a LinkedIn post. I'm looking to the side here because I got my notes on the side. I just thought this was so good with mental health in social media. You said my mental health is always its worst when my social media consumption is peaked. We don't really talk about how detrimental social media can be. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Dopamine hits from endless scrolling are real, and a lot of the content people share is nothing more than an illusion you're comparing yourself to, an illusion that's making you feel awful about your life
Hmm.
and where you're at. You hit the nail on that head. So do you want to talk about that for me, like mental health and social media?
Yeah, it's been a journey. Yeah, it's as like a consumer and as like a creator. Like I've been on
Well, and
both
you're in it.
sides of the
You're deep in it
spectrum.
too, and
Yeah,
you're good
so
at it.
thank you. Yeah, I think it's a great tool and it's a great place to connect and like share your message and educate and inspire and all these great things. But then also there's the other edge of the sword where it can be so toxic. And I have found myself like the past month, I think when I posted that was maybe like a week or two ago, but I remember every night, like before bed, I used to read and do some things that were like healthier, quote unquote. And then I fell into this cycle of scrolling before bed, and it would be like an hour or two. And the algorithm knows exactly what you like and what you engage with. And you're kind of in this like little ecosystem of your own, right? And I think for me, especially when I was going through my business failure, I was comparing myself to all of my peers and all of the people
Mm,
around me that are doing well and succeeding and building multi-million dollar businesses and having the big exits. And, growing and doing all these amazing things. But it's interesting because it's portrayed one way on social media, and then you start talking to them and you get to know them on a deeper level, and there's actually like a lot of things going on that they're not talking about, and a lot of failures and
Yeah.
things underneath that you have no idea. And here you are, and me and a lot of other people are comparing their story and their journey to the highlight reels of this person, and it makes you feel really bad about yourself. And so that's something I struggled with. I've had eating disorders in the past, and I have body dysmorphia and like all these weird things with my body, and I always have, and it ebbs and flows. Like you said, it's a journey and it's not linear. Like recovery is never linear. You have dips. And I think when I start to really go inward and struggle to like accept myself and love myself, it's because I'm comparing myself to all these people that I'm seeing online. And,
Yeah.
which, again, like you have your own body, your own journey. Don't compare yourself to someone you see on the internet. You don't know what their story is. You don't know where they're at. You don't know anything about them. And so I think those are things that like I struggled with, is just like the comparison thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, when I first started posting on social media, I would get a lot of really nasty comments that would send me into the biggest spiral,
Really?
to the point where I
Yeah.
had to turn my comments off. And like I was in recovery for bulimia during the pandemic, and I put on a lot of weight, and I had so many comments about my weight on my posts
Yeah. And
for,
nobody
a long
knew.
time. No, so that's like really hard when you're already struggling to recover, and then you have that on top of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually the hardest thing I've ever done. And people
It's
are so mean.
also, if I can just pause there, it's also huge messaging to everybody that you have no idea what's going on with that other person.
Yeah.
They didn't know you were in recovery for bulimia. Like, shame on all of that, but it's a larger lesson of we do not know what
Yeah.
anybody's experiencing when we post those things.
Yeah, it's so true. And yeah, so that I had people write me hate emails. I've had like a lot of like
Mm,
crazy stuff happen, and it used to really rub me the wrong way and really send me down a bad path. And now when stuff like that happens, I don't really get it that often. I just kind of think, okay, would a happy person say this and do this? No.
right.
So this is a reflection of them. I feel sorry for them because they're not in a good place with themselves
Mm-hmm.
and their life. And I say
Mm-hmm.
a little prayer and then I move on, and I don't acknowledge it. You don't engage with it because that's what they want. They want you to feed into it, and then they'll go feed into it, and it'll just be this cycle that's not going to get anywhere, like there's no
Yeah.
point. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you know what I think the antidote to all of that is? Not caring.
Yeah.
If you don't care, that this is all easy. Like, I've not been on social media until like October, just before I turned 52. And
Mm,
before I was like, I don't care about your latte. I don't care about your dinner. I don't care about the party that I'm not invited to, and I don't want to know about it. But as soon as you care, like, my mental health has never been worse, and I've actually had stellar mental health,
mm,
but because I'm off this year, I'm on paid leave to do this. It's that when you care, which people who engage do usually, it's just that's where I think,
yeah.
I don't know if that's where it starts.
Yeah, it's hard. I think, yeah, I look at some of the things because some of my friends have bigger platforms, and they get a
Mm-hmm.
lot more hate than I do. And I just have so much respect for them because I'm like, it just
Do it.
takes so
Yeah.
much to
Yeah.
battle that and deal with
Yeah.
that every day. And yeah, you have to be in such a good place with yourself mentally as well
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
handle that.
I was just talking to, so I teach spin. I taught a spin class this morning. I was just talking to the
Oh,
programmer
nice.
after, just this morning. And I said, you know what it is? It's this, you're constantly in this position of never enough.
Mm-hmm.
Social media positions you to never be enough. Always. Right? Comments, likes, retweets, followers. It's just, it's every single moment has been my experience about it.
Yeah, it's true. And I have another friend who's a creator, and she was with us in Mexico. And I remember talking to her. She's like, I really struggle to put my authentic self out there because I'm so afraid of what people are going to say and if I'll get
Yeah.
canceled. And then she
Yeah.
also said, I spend so much time making content, and then when I put it out and it doesn't perform well, I feel like I failed and I'm not good enough. And
Yeah.
I take that personally. Whereas you just have to, it's the expectations, right? Like the more expectations you have, the more disappointment you have. So you have to just detach. Like you have to detach from any outcome, whatever you put out, any relationship, any friendship, anything in your life. Like you just have to detach. And it's like not caring or like letting go of that, but not letting it control you, and
Right.
dictate how you feel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. But I think that is so easier said than done. Like I don't
for
know
sure.
how people reconcile that because listen, I'm struggling very much so. And
Hmm.
like I told you, we were like tears last week about it. And I was not raised in this. I had decades of self-worth, decades of being enough, and decades of not seeing every feed that comes back, all the analytics, getting reports of what happens. And I don't know how people that haven't had that foundation, like it's mind boggling to me, Erica, how you actually do that. You talk about it, but I don't know how people, especially with the amount of time and this is your livelihood, I don't know how people really can do that. It's hard. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it is hard. And like, I think social media too is just a grind. Like, you're constantly putting yourself out there and trying things and throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I saw a post a few days ago, and I think like Mr. Beast, he's like the most successful YouTuber that like everyone knows. He's like this
Okay.
20-something-year-old guy. And yeah, he's like a billionaire. But he posted, I think, 400 videos before he got
Wow.
virality on
Okay.
YouTube. And
Yeah.
I've been struggling too. Like, I've been trying to grow my podcast, and I had a call with my friend who also, she does the same thing. She's a YouTuber, she's a podcaster. And I was like, man, it's really hard. It's a grind. Like, it's so
Yeah.
confusing. And she's like, yeah, we had one video do really good and then the other one didn't do good. And it just ebbs and flows, but you just have to keep showing up and just keep trying
Yeah.
different things. And I think like having a strong mission is really helpful because it pushes you through. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
mission is greater than the frustration or the fear or, all these other things that come with putting content out when you're not familiar with social media as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome. And you already brought us now into what I want to now talk about, into authenticity. And I actually first had wanted to talk to you about just anxiety. Remember, I asked you like anxiety in social media, but I actually, after I read more about you and really did a deep dive, it's the authenticity that we need to talk about now. You mentioned your friend being fearful of being authentic for
Hmm.
responses. So I'm going to link it after to mental health with my questions. But right now, I just want you to tell me, what does authenticity mean to you in any way?
I think it's just living your life unfiltered and not
Mm,
watered down and just truly being yourself, embracing all parts of you, even the parts that may be a little difficult to face. And that's why I started my podcast last year, because I called it You're Not a Bad Person, because I felt like I was a bad person because of all the things that I've done in my past. And,
mm,
I've made mistakes. I've done things that I'm not super proud of. And I did hold shame around a lot of those parts of myself. And I felt like I wasn't being authentic because I was only showing this one version of myself. And it felt like I was suppressing a version of Erica that no one knew. And I wasn't ready to share with the world. And
mm,
now I feel like I've stepped into this version of myself that can fully be myself.
yeah.
And I don't have to like second guess things. Like, I can have and authenticity too. Like, it doesn't have to be applied just to social media. It's like, how do you show up authentically in your life? Like, how do you
Yeah.
have vulnerable conversations with the people that you love in your circle, in your life? How can you do things that are in alignment with you and what you want for your life? Like, how do you live life on your terms and not for others?
That's powerful. If people tap into that, that is so powerful for living across the
Hmm.
board in this life. Okay, so you did a post on Instagram that I forever admire you because you could not pay me enough money in the world for what you posted. And you had, I think it was a carousel of you in tears, like tears throughout of, the when you had to declare bankruptcy, and you had, I think, no makeup on, no mascara on. And I was like, wow, like talk to me about that, your willingness to do that.
Yeah, that again, like, I love the quote, like, we're most capable to help the person we used to be. And it's funny because I wasn't going to share the bankruptcy thing initially because I was in
Mm-hmm.
such a bad place. It's hard to talk about shit you're going through when you're going
Yeah,
through it. It's easy
sure.
to do it when you're out on the other side and be like, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm successful now, but like, back in 2024, I filed for
Totally.
bankruptcy. And that's what I was going to do. I was going to be like, okay, I can get into a better place and then I can share this because I won't look like, such a failure or a loser or whatever. All these stories I was telling myself. And as I was moving through it, I was like, you know what? There's probably so many people out there right now with the way the economy is, the way the industry is, that are going through exactly what I'm going through and they don't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know who to turn to because I didn't know where to go or who to turn to. Like, no one publicly announces their failing at their business and they're filing bankruptcy. So it was just a very silent thing that people go through, is what I learned. And when I posted that, as well as on LinkedIn, a lot of the truths of going through that hardship in my life, I had probably like 15 people reach out to me that were all like on the brink of bankruptcy. And one of them, her and her husband, they had a brewery. They've had it for years. They're married. They put their whole savings into that business and they were about to file bankruptcy. Like their business is going to go under. And, I had these really heavy emotional conversations with people that just felt so alone in it. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like I could have sat on this and like waited to tell this story, but I think it needed to be told now so that I could have these people reach out to me and I can have these conversations, because there is nothing worse than going through something and feeling like you're so alone in it and you have nowhere to turn to and you don't have anyone to talk to who can relate. And it's like the mental health stuff too, like the eating disorder. I remember when I was going through that and I told my best friend, and I love her, but she couldn't understand. She's like, I don't get it. I don't know why you're going through this. Like I've never been through anything like that, so I can't really help you. And I'm like, I just need to go somewhere where I'm heard and I can talk about this stuff with someone who gets it. Because it makes all the difference when you have someone on that level who knows. You can have someone give you advice, but have they gone through it? Like that's way more valuable, and you feel seen, and you actually know this person understands exactly how you're feeling. So I guess that's like all to say, like I posted it because I know that someone needed to see it.
Well, and the irony of this is you feel so alone, but especially when this happened for you, like finances have been never worse. And people, the bankers, like look at restaurants that
Yeah.
have gone on under during COVID and post COVID. So it's ironic because really what happened to you, I think, is so not abnormal,
Yeah.
right? And it's interesting how many people too reached out to you about it.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad.
It's very sad. Yeah. So what made you, I don't know, I know you've kind of answered this. I don't know if you can nail this down. Like what made you and why at the very root of this are you, like in a sentence or two, are you authentic in front of thousands of people?
I guess I want to be the person that I needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
totally. Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's in some, because I have needed a lot of things growing up in my life and I haven't gotten them, and it's the worst feeling. And I feel like I have gone through a lot of things, and if I can be, the person that someone needs at some point in their life, like whatever they're going through, like that's all I want. Because yeah,
Yeah.
there's no worse feeling than feeling like you're alone and no one understands you.
Well,
Yeah.
and so one of the things that came out of my research that everybody knows it's connection. We all
Mm,
yearn for everybody. We all yearn for connection, and being alone is the complete opposite of everything that you need as a living, breathing human being. Like
mhm,
globally, everybody needs that.
mhm.
So I have two questions before we do wrap up questions. I want to link authenticity with building mental health. Here's number one. Can you talk to me about the power of failure?
The power of
The
failure.
power of failure.
Yeah, I guess the power of failure. Failure is a tricky thing. It is something that I still like kind of struggle with, I'll be honest, but I kind of reframed it now. I used to look at it as like, I fucked up, I screwed up, I'm, like not worthy, I'm not good enough. And now I'm like, okay, I took big swings and I bet on myself and I'm so proud of what I learned.
Mm,
And I
hmm.
think there's more power in trying and failing than not trying at all, because you're scared of failing. And I remember sitting in a co-working space with my friend right before I was going to file for bankruptcy for my business. I was on the fence. I'm like, Mark, like my business is losing money month over month. I need to raise more money. I have like my back's against the wall. I don't know what to do. I'm miserable. Like mentally, I'm the worst I've ever been. He's like, just shut it down. File bankruptcy. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm like, that's so embarrassing. Like I can't, like what the, like I can't ruin my credit score. Like who does that? This is like something I'm going to be so ashamed of. Like I can't. And then he's like, okay, so like let's just Google something. So he Googled like famous entrepreneurs that filed bankruptcy, and it was
Good
Walt
Google.
Disney,
Yeah.
Milton Hershey,
Awesome.
50 Cent, like Donald Trump. All these people have filed bankruptcy. And then he's like, look, you know,
Right.
look. And
Right.
I'm like, okay, that really did put things into perspective for me. And most, successful people have a bunch of failures under their belt. You just don't hear about it. You hear about
Yeah.
the Amazons or the Teslas
Right.
or all of the ones that, were the home run, so to speak. So that's how I look at it now. It's like, okay, you had a strike, you know, you didn't
Totally.
get the home run. That's okay, but you practiced your swings and you tried. And I think that speaks volumes. And I gained so much out of those 4.5 years, even though my business didn't succeed. Like, I'm here on this podcast because of it, talking to you. I built an amazing community. I've gotten clients. I built a platform that I can now monetize. And
Mm-hmm.
I think people forget they think that it's the end all be all if you do fail, but you have so much that you can take away from that. It just looks a little different than you
You
initially
know,
thought.
Erica, I deeply, like at a cellular level, believe that even in a few decades from now, you're going to see more things out of that.
Hmm.
I really think that walking through that fire as you get older, you see even more. Like my experience has been, so I've been teaching since 1996, and I am embarrassed when I present. I'm embarrassed to tell stories of the mistakes I made as a teacher young. I
Hmm.
once had a parent call the school where my principal says, is this a threat on this teacher? Because I have to call the police if it is. Like it was that bad, right? I've been yelled at for an hour. And I look back at every single one of those like times of challenge, and could be like a bit of my own failure, quote unquote, because I made mistakes, right? Every single one was growth for me. Every single one made me better. Every single one, like I identified things and I grew. Like I'm looking back now decades and I see it even with more clarity of I had to go through those really stupid mistakes to grow and develop, and I'm still doing that, right? Or opportunities that came too from things that had not gone well. I really believe that. I really
Yeah,
do.
it's so true. I 100% agree.
You don't know. Okay, I've got one more before we're going to put this together with authenticity and mental health. I just have to ask you this one. You've written a lot. Your past does not define you. And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, you and because I've said that too. The past doesn't define you. But what I've said, I want your opinion on my take on this. And it comes from, by the way, I have a hand deformity that you can't see on the screen, and I
Mm.
had severe bullying when I was little. So because of that, like I was pushed off a ledge. Back then we had playgrounds that had no edges on them, and I remember falling. They called me Butterfingers, and I remember
Oh.
falling and hitting my sternum, and I still remember the pain. And just like we don't do that anymore, right? And that's why I have said this: your past does not define you, but it is defining. It
Hmm.
doesn't define who you are, but it's defining.
Hmm.
For me, it's been, I know how I'm supposed to be treated now, and I will not be
Hmm.
treated poorly as an adult. And so what do you think of that?
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, like high school and like elementary school and all those bullies are the worst.
So bad.
I got bullied for being chubby. Like that was that was my thing. Yeah, but no, for sure. I think like all of the experiences we've been through shape us into who we are as a person. I kind of like the failure thing and all of the traumas and the shit that I've been through, and just everyone has trauma. Everyone has been through something. Like it morphs you into this version that if you can embrace it and accept it and use those as your superpower, I think that's like a beautiful thing. And it does shape who you are and your identity. And I think for me, I got so hung up on the things that I did. I didn't really embrace them. I kind of shoved them down and was like, oh my gosh, I'm
Mm,
so embarrassed that I did this. And if people knew this about me, it would discredit everything I've built and they would see me differently and I wouldn't be loved and accepted by my friends. And just like all of these beliefs, you know, that just perpetuate the shame and, you know, holding everything in a box, like locking it away in a box. And so I don't want anyone to feel like the things that they've done in their past will define them now. Like I think
mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm,
you can choose to be a different person and people are always growing and always evolving. Like I don't think that you're born a certain way and you're that way forever. I know there are some people that have that fixed mindset and they don't think that people can change, but I'm not one of those people. I think people are always changing, they're always evolving. A lot of people are constantly working on themselves and trying to be better, which I love, respect, and appreciate that. And I've had like a whole nother journey with like forgiveness because I used to be a grudge
mm.
holder. And
Okay.
now I'm learning how to forgive people and see people and be patient as well, because that's a big piece of it too.
Yeah. It's something that I think it's so powerful to be able to take our past, and that becomes our empowerment. It becomes our empowerment. And one of my things was with my severe bullying when I was younger, when my daughter was going through challenges in grade 2, I could say, you know what, I actually know what it is. Like, let me tell you what happened to me, and you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
okay. And I meant it. Like, I had the
Mm-hmm.
authenticity to step in and mean it. So, and I worked with so many kids that are just, so, again, so hard on themselves, so unkind to themselves and lacking in grace. And that's like to recognize, like, it's okay. Like, you are moving. And by the way, science, like neuroscience, what you just said about we're not that way forever, neuroscience since the 1960s has shown that exact thing. We can
Mm-hmm.
develop new neural pathways, literally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Neurons, we know that. You probably did that in your psych degree, right?
Yeah, I learned about that, and I do follow Joe Dispenza a little bit and have listened to things that he talks about. And I think he was saying, like, before the age of 35, it's really easy to build new pathways and new
Okay.
habits and new behaviors. And then as you age, it's still possible, but it is more challenging to do
Yeah.
that. But yeah, for
I'll tell
sure.
you why. Well, my opinion is that as you get older, you don't want to risk as much. That's what
Yeah.
we get in a stuck mindset, and we don't want to change and risk. And I've got friends, in their 50s and they hate their jobs and they're overrun, but you know what?
Mm-hmm.
They're sticking now till retirement. And you also run out of time to risk. Okay, 3 wrap up questions. So here's number 1, and this is actually why this is like my culminating question here. How does your authenticity and being authentic on social media help potentially decrease the mental health challenges on social media? And you could say it doesn't. Like, maybe it doesn't. I'm guessing it does, but that might be a bad question. So you can
I
disagree.
guess, I guess I'm just trying to be a voice and talk about stuff that isn't really talked about because everyone posts stuff on social media, but they don't really talk about the mental health aspect of it. So if I can be a
Mm-hmm.
voice for people who can maybe like scroll and see it and be like,
Right.
okay, wow, like I can relate to this, and maybe I should reduce my screen time, or maybe I feel really shitty and it's because I've been scrolling too much on social media. Like, I don't know, maybe like the post that you talked about that I put out there about my mental health being the worst when my social media consumption is at its highest.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I just try to like tap into what's going on in my life and then put it out there. And if people can relate and then maybe make the same subtle adjustments in their life to help them
Mm-hmm.
thrive, then that's kind of my mission.
Does it decrease your anxiety at all being authentic? Like, do you feel a lessened anxiety, or does it make it worse being authentic on social media?
I think it felt worse for me trying to portray
Okay.
myself as someone I wasn't because I
Okay.
did that for the first year or two. And then now I feel like I can, I mean, I still get anxiety sometimes putting out
Sure.
content, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like I can be me,
Yeah.
the unfiltered version.
Yeah. It seems to me, just me entering in this big bad world of social media, that if you're authentic, that it's your true self. So can you feel at the end of the day better about yourself because this is who you are and it aligns with your values? I don't know. And I mean, the biggest thing I see is anxiety and feeling crappy about yourself and depression.
Yeah. Yeah. I for sure. I mean, yeah, this is like a whole nother conversation, but yeah, like I think like it's hard for people to be themselves because they're so scared of the criticism they're gonna get and like being canceled or
Yep.
whatever, right?
Yep.
Because then it's
Yeah.
personal. They're attacking you for
Absolutely.
you,
It's
right?
totally that again. I don't know how you do that. Like, that's hard. Okay, here's
Hmm.
number 2. You have been authentic about your Christian faith on social media, which I've really respected because Christianity right now is like not necessarily PC in some places. I mean,
Hmm.
it has grown, I think, in the last few years. But what has that done for you to be authentic about your faith? What has that done maybe for your mental health or just your platform on social media?
I guess for me, like when I'm authentic in every aspect of my life, spiritually, I don't know, financially, whatever, every aspect, I draw in the right people that that message
Mm,
resonates with, and my people,
good.
that are
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
at that same level. And I don't really have that many people around me that are, I don't like the term religious. I like the term relationship. Like I have a
Sure.
relationship with God and I am like growing that and I'm learning and I'm still like a newbie at it. And I wanted to surround myself with more people that kind of were walking the same path. And I think if I'm
Hmm.
vocal about it, then I'm pulling in those people and when I did
Mm-hmm.
post about it for the first time. And again, it is controversial. Posting about getting baptized on a
Yeah,
professional
yeah.
platform is, like not something you see every day, but it did resonate with the right people and the right people I want to reach and the people that I want in my community. And it helped build new relationships with people that are very like-minded and on the same path, which is what I want.
Have you had any hate responses to it? Like, how dare you post this on this platform? It has no place here, or
No, surprisingly, I never got
okay,
that, but I did get some messages that did talk about how I should explore other options in terms of
really?
religion. And it's like, you shouldn't, you shouldn't believe in that, but here's what you should believe in. Because typically, a lot of people who express that to me have a really bad relationship with Christianity, and they were brought up
Okay,
in a very Christian
yeah.
household, and there's something that cause them to feel that way, which
Mm-hmm.
is very common. And I have some friends in my life, same thing, like they kind of got burned and had a bad
Mm-hmm.
experience and now have a certain perception of it, which is understandable. But that, yeah, surprisingly, no
Yeah.
really negative. Yeah, the algorithm saved me there. I don't know.
You have enough responses. No, it's interesting. I do think that the LinkedIn audience is maybe a little bit more polite. Am I wrong on that? It feels to me that people are a little bit more considerate on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I've
Okay.
had like,
Okay.
usually if I get hate, it's from men, and I have a lot blocked. I just block them if I get
Okay.
anything.
Sure.
TikTok was really bad because it's anonymous. So you have like user 68352
Right.
who
Yeah.
says, you're a
Yeah.
fatty or whatever they say in the comments, and you don't know who they are. They don't have a profile picture. They're just like anonymous and they can say whatever they want to whoever they want. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can get on the good side of TikTok and get like a lot of support and good comments, or you can get on the bad side where people are just, I think Instagram though is the worst, is what I hear.
Was
I
it?
don't
Okay.
I don't post enough to get,
Yeah.
a lot of comments like that. But yeah, from my friends I hear that
Okay.
Instagram people can be pretty harsh. Yeah.
It's this open territory of
Hmm.
bad manners that you would never say. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
whole other discussion too, right? Of what you would say to somebody's face and what comes out. That's
Hmm.
what I find so challenging with toxic media is it's a platform where anything goes and there's no accountability. Okay,
Keyboard warriors.
yeah. Here's my last question. And I've never asked this question. I've done about 45 interviews now. And I don't mean this flippantly. And this just came to me as I was preparing for this. And I mean this at a deep level is how can I support you?
Oh,
I mean this deeply, Erica. Like, I'm across the country from you. I'm old enough to be your mom. I've had different experiences, and how can I support you?
honestly, you've been very supportive to me already on LinkedIn and just rooting for me and commenting, and that I really appreciate. And that's why I got on here because I was like, she seems so awesome and supportive and cool, and she's doing big things. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I just want to stay in your network and mutually support each other.
I don't mean it flippantly. And the reason I'm also asking the question is like, I want to create a community where we can, even far away, support each other human to human. And I love your vulnerability and holy smokes, your authenticity. Like, I will not be on a screen without my eyelashes, just to be really clear about that. And my contouring, and my kids are like,
That's
Mom, you're
okay,
too
girl.
big. But I really feel the power of that deeply, and because we're not supporting each other, we're not connecting, and I
Mhm.
still believe we can in ways from afar, just having a heart for somebody. That's why I asked the question.
I think like, and this is funny because my closest friends don't live anywhere near me. Like
Mm-hmm.
my one good friend, she's in New York. I've never been to New York. My other good friend, she's in Calgary, and I've seen her once in like 2023. Like it's been forever, but we talk every week. And I've kind of built out this little ecosystem of people that I communicate with on a consistent basis, like sending voice notes. So if I'm like going through something, I'm like, hey, just wanted to say,
Yeah.
hey, like I'm dealing with this right now. Like, what's up with you? And I kind of, again, like I think when you're authentic and you're putting yourself out there and your intentions are good, you're going to pull in the right people. And I think that's what this past year has done for me of just like
Mm-hmm.
fully tapping into myself is I built really amazing friendships with women that I maybe don't really know like in real life, like we haven't spent that much time together, but virtually we've gotten so close because we've been able to like be vulnerable and have
Right.
conversations around business and mental health and eating disorders and all these things that are kind of taboo and like hard to talk about normally. Even with some of my friends growing up, I find that
Mm-hmm.
there's some conversations I cannot have with certain people because it just doesn't really go anywhere. So I think like having a community like that or having some space for that, for women to just be like, bleh, you know?
Like that's work. Like you have, because I
Yeah.
don't know, like my kids, especially my daughter, because girls at 14 years old are
Mm,
so awful. And I have said, you choose your friends and you watch them and how do they treat other people? Because
yeah.
how they treat other people is going to be you one day, and you want good people. So you don't
Hmm.
want the girl drama that happens in high school. You know, you want that authenticity because we need that deep connection. And like you said earlier, like being alone, it's the worst feeling in the world. It's the
Yeah.
worst feeling. Do you know, side comment here, and I know we got to finish, but I worked with kids that were homeless, and I didn't know
Mm,
this, but they said the absolute worst thing about being homeless is not that you're cold, not that you don't have food, not that you're literally on a sidewalk. It's that nobody looks at you. Nobody
mm,
acknowledges you. Nobody says hi, your name. You are nothing on the street. We're
hmm.
wired for connection. I thought that was so powerful.
Yeah. It's really sad when you think about it. And like I thought that all people like sucked because I had really bad experiences in high school with friends and I
Yeah,
held
trauma.
grudges. I had really high standards for myself, so I had high standards for other people. And so I spent so much time alone. And I think it is powerful to be independent, but also you cannot thrive being alone all the
Nope.
time. And like we're brought up in a society, especially like Western culture, is like you work, you get the job, you're always like, like you have your thing. It's not this collectivism that
Yeah.
other places have,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I started listening to podcasts because I felt so alone. And that was like kind of another source of inspiration for me launching my podcast, is because I would literally just sit and listen like all day, every day to different people and relate to them. I'm like, oh, wow, I don't feel alone in this. Like, this is my friend that I can listen to every Thursday or whatever. And I looked forward to that. And I think it is important to have like really good quality friendships in high school, like as you're growing up in university. And then you're gonna like move those circles around. Like some people are meant to stay for a season, some people are meant to stay for a lifetime, and you just have to let go and let things happen, right? And
Yeah.
again, not have those expectations.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
women and for men too. Like, you
Hmm.
know, my husband's got some guys he goes to pubs with that he doesn't drink, but he has like Diet Coke, and just like everybody across this world. Erica Rankin, I thank you so much for your time. It was so fascinating talking to you, and I applaud you for your bravery.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to this channel if you want to get more videos about how we find authentic connection in every way, and click like on that little link below. I'll see you next time.